Good evening, everyone. Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. My name is Alpa Sharma, and I hope all of you are doing really good today. Can you hear and see me clearly, everybody? I am so sorry for keeping you waiting for half an hour. The session was supposed to be scheduled at 6, but then I had a batch that was running and there was some confusion, and thus 6:30 is the actual timing of the class. If you could quickly confirm I'm clearly audible and visible, we shall start with the decoding of the basics of critical reasoning, one of the dreaded topics. Good evening, good evening. Yes, I'm clearly audible and visible. All right. So let's first understand what exactly is the agenda for today's session. Why is this session necessary? What are we going to be doing today? Since critical reasoning is one of those topics these days, analytical is not given so much importance as critical is, and ALET, specifically CLAT and ALET, they predominantly focus so much on critical reasoning. This session aims at understanding the basic principles, basic fundamentals and theories of critical reasoning, which is actually a mandate for all of us, which will enable us to solve many questions correctly. So we're going to be making this a theory class. I'll be teaching you today the basic fundamentals, principles of critical reasoning, which is necessary for you to understand so that you're able to solve critical reasoning questions seamlessly. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Are you ready for the session, everyone? Shall I start with the basic theory of critical reasoning? How are we supposed to go ahead with it? Yes, everyone? Shall we? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. I'm so sorry. So here we go. So let's first understand what exactly is critical reasoning. Before I approach with the theory and the concepts, let's understand what exactly is critical thinking, critical reasoning. So critical reasoning is your ability to think clearly and apply reasoning to any statement, to any paragraph, to any talk where there are statements involved. When you apply logic to it, when you apply reasoning to it, and when you think clearly, that's exactly is critical thinking or critical reasoning. Now, my one question, as a law aspirant, why are you supposed to know this? What is the necessity to know critical thinking, critical reasoning? Why is it necessary? Who'd like to answer this? Shreya, I'll aim at making you understand this completely. See, as a lawyer, obviously, because you're going to be going into the court and reason with the opponent, reason with the judge, you have to think logically. You have to, your thought needs to be clear and it should be backed with reasoning. So that's exactly what's expected out of a lawyer. If you cannot think logically, rationally, with reasoning backing up your thoughts, you cannot become an efficient lawyer, and that's exactly what an NLU demands out of you. It demands you to absolutely think logically, rationally, with reasoning. Of course, and it expects you to know this already. NLUs expect you to know this already. They expect you to think that way already, and that's exactly, absolutely, that's exactly why this topic needs to be there in every law entrance examination. So, of course, I've explained all this theory to you. Now, the basic fundamental, before I start with the theory, understand something that I'm trying to convey to you. When you approach a critical reasoning question, be it one-liner, be it paragraph-based, be it a passage-based critical reasoning question, we always promote the understanding of basic terminologies as a structure of an argument in a critical reasoning question. Now, this argument could be one line. Let's first understand what exactly is an argument. Okay, so argument is exactly what the author is saying to us in the form of a question. This could be one line, this could be one paragraph, this could be one long passage with many paragraphs. Each of these kind of questions have three components, and we need to know the three components in and out, because if you do not know this, your ability to solve any critical reasoning question, be it one-liner, be it paragraph-based, be it passage-based, will be hampered. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today. Basically, I'll be giving you a theory which will be followed by some questions. We will learn to break a question into 3 fragments. Once I give you the theory, make sure you follow this with every single question. Yes, Dia, with every single question that you solve, every single one. Why? I shall answer that later on. Of course, you know the basic 3 components are these. But what are these? Is the basic question. What are these? How do I differentiate between them? I am confused. What is an assumption? I am sometimes confused between assumption and conclusion. I am sometimes unable to identify a premise. How do I do that? So this is what we're going to be focusing on today. Let's go step by step, okay? So this is basically a house that we're trying to draw here. And the moment and this is my favorite part of the theory. If you've been studying with me, you would know that I love teaching this part. If you build a house, the first and the foremost thing we build is the foundation. Right? And after that, we build the walls and the roof. Now, after the foundation, for assumption, we have to be righter than the reader. Yes, you're right. Yes, Alifa, that's my favorite diagram. Okay. So, let's understand. If we build a house, the foundation is the first thing that we make. And then we build the walls, build the roof. But then, after the foundation is made and the roof and the walls are made, can we see the foundation? We cannot. We cannot see the foundation, right? And we see the walls, we see the roof. But then, if I shake this foundation, what's going to happen? The entire house is going to collapse. This foundation is absolutely necessary for me to keep my house intact. Let's understand this theory from the perspective of a critical reasoning argument. A critical reasoning argument is always dependent on an assumption as its foundation. Let me give you an example to make this clear to you, okay? For example, I say, please solve all the CLAT previous year papers. Alpha ma'am says this to us, to you, okay? Now, if I give you this statement, I am the speaker. This is what you see, okay? What I see are the walls. This is my premise, okay? Looking at the premise, I can draw some conclusions as the roof. But this premise is also going to be dependent on some predetermined assumptions. The assumptions that are made by the speaker. Now, let me give you an example of an assumption that Alpha ma'am must have made here. The moment I say, please solve all the CLAT previous year paper questions, I must have assumed you're going to obey or you're going to follow my suggestion. This is something I have already presumed, but I don't have to say this to you. It's hidden as the foundation. And if I did not assume this, I would not have said you this. If I knew you would not solve all the previous year CLAT papers, I wouldn't ask you to solve them. That means my statement and its truth, its truthfulness is dependent on the assumption that you are going to obey me. Would you agree with that? Everyone, would you agree with this assumption? Is my assumption correct or wrong? That students are going to follow me. Is that a correct assumption? Yes, it is. And Alifia says maybe previous year CLAT papers are helpful for preparation. Maybe, maybe not. That's a conclusion. So let me teach you two things here. Assumption is the foundation. It's hidden. But assumption is always going to be made by the speaker. That is, if Alpha ma'am gave you the statement, Alpha ma'am is going to be the person who's going to make an assumption. Ma'am, there are previous year questions of CLAT can also be an assumption. Absolutely. Yes, that's a correct assumption. Okay. Now, premise is what we see. And conclusion is what we draw out after processing the whole set of premise. If you as a reader are going to consider something absolutely true, that's going to be your conclusion. So when you are confused in differentiating between assumption and conclusion, remember, an assumption is always seen from the perspective of the speaker or the question maker. A conclusion is always seen from the perspective of a reader. Remember these two things when you are confused with an assumption and a conclusion question. Okay. Now, premise is, of course, if I look at one line, it's the data given to me in the question. But what makes life difficult here is if I have a long paragraph. How many of you struggle with differentiating between a conclusion and a premise? In a longer paragraph, I'll repeat. How many of you struggle with differentiating between premise and conclusion? Iram does. Upasana, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be absolutely true. So now guys, since a lot of you are struggling with differentiating between a premise and a conclusion in a longer paragraph, let me teach you the methodology to identify that in longer ones. And then we're going to be solving some questions so that we get those correct. For now, the basic fundamental of these as a one-liner question should be clear to everyone. Okay. Now, if you look at a bigger paragraph will have a lot of information which will always, not always, which will very likely lead you to something that has to be absolutely true. And this absolutely true thing is considered a conclusion. Now remember, if you have, okay, Suraj, I'll tell you the negation technique. First, understand how do you identify a conclusion if it's there in your paragraph, if it's there in your passage. See, one common theory is that the conclusion statement will be written with does, therefore. That's a common one. But very likely it's not going to be written with one of those. A conclusion is a statement that's going to surmount all the information that's there in the passage. That is, it's going to be drawn by processing everything written in the passage. It's going to be a finalizing statement. Could be there in the beginning of a passage, could be there in the ending of the passage. But if my passage has a conclusion, it will be a statement, I'll repeat, it will be a statement that will be surmounting every ounce of information that's there in my premise. So premise is, if I say reading critical reasoning is important for you. It is important because it's an imperative part of CLAT preparation. It will also help you become a better lawyer. Instead of this second argument, if I give you any other argument, my statement still stands correct that studying critical reasoning is important for me. Do you agree? Studying critical reasoning is important for you because it is asked in CLAT, it is asked in ALET, it will make you a better lawyer. Instead of the three reasons, I can give you any other reason. Your argument can still be correct that studying critical reasoning is important for you. That means these three reasons were a part of your premise or conclusion or argument. or assumption? Tell me. What were these three statements a part of? Argument, premise, assumption, or conclusion? What would that be? It's going to be your premise. Exactly. It's going to be your premise. Priyanka, I'll give you another example. Okay? Just remember, if I draw a conclusion, it's going to be your main argument. Because to state that thing, I've given you three examples. What did I want to state? I wanted to state that reading critical reasoning is important for you. Let me tell you another example as well. Some organizations, listen to this example very clearly, everyone, before I proceed with more theory. Some organizations, okay, some organizations are pressurizing their employees to get vaccinated at least 2 times, double vaccinated, before they come to the office. And if the employees do not get vaccinated, they are asked to either leave the organization or get themselves vaccinated as soon as possible. This is going to be detrimental for the organization because we are violating a person's fundamental right to choose. Which line is my argument? Which line is my argument? Which line is my conclusion? What conclusion am I drawing here in the whole passage? Could be in the beginning, could be in the end. What am I drawing here? I'll wait for your answers. By the time I have a sip of water. Let me see if you've got the theory. Shreya says the last one. Okay. Absolutely, Priyanka. Yes. Yes, Shreya. It's the last one. That this will be detrimental because of the reason you're violating the fundamental right. Exactly. Absolutely. If this is my conclusion, that means any organization vaccinating or not vaccinating its citizens is a part of the premise. These are the pillars on which my conclusion is standing. I'm sure you've got the hang of the theory. Would you like to do some questions with me? I'm going to give you a paragraph. You have to identify the premise and the conclusion there. Okay, let's do this and then I'll continue with giving you examples of assumptions and how can a conclusion be your argument as well. Here we go with the first question. Ready everyone? Read the paragraph. Send me done once you're done. I am going to ask you, give you options like this, okay? These are the options and you have to tell me which is the, what lines are the premise of the argument. Read this paragraph and send me a done. Sanjana, let's do it through this example, my child. This is a simple one. You have a word. Okay. You're done. Here you go. Tell me which lines out of these options are the premise of the above argument. Here, the option. What's your premise? What's your answer? Identify the premise. D. Everyone says D. Unanimously, yes. Now let's understand this question a little. Of course, the answer clearly is a D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything till this part is a part of premise. Can I, looking at the question, this was an easy one, but let's answer a few questions in our head. Is this line drawn after processing this entire part? Yes or no? Is this line drawn after processing this entire part? In other words, can I say, is this entire part written so that I can draw this out? Yes, exactly. So what did I teach you in the beginning? A conclusion is something that's going to be a statement that would be drawn out of the entire set of premise. Every other thing that's written will play or act like a pillar to your question that will give birth to the conclusion. Okay? Of course, all of these lines are fact-based, like 8.3 lakh or 1.49, but even if that was not true, even if this data was not there, other statements without data can still be your premise. Okay? Let's try to apply the same theory to another question. Okay? Here, of course, we had a conjunction which obviously meant that a conclusion will follow here. Let's try to apply the same theory to another set of questions and let's see if we've understood this one. Read the paragraph and send me a done. All the best, everyone. Apply the theory that I taught you. Once you're done, send me a done, then I'll show you the options. Yes, Shreya, that's absolutely right. Here you go with the options. Identify the premise or premises in the above argument. What's your answer? A? Okay. 1, 2, and 3 are premises. That means 4 is the conclusion, is it? Four is scientists therefore think that bats might have been original hosts of the novel coronavirus. Is 1, does 1 look like a conclusion to you guys? B, C, D. Okay. It's going to be A. The correct answer is certainly an A. The entire paragraph, again, let's repeat the reasoning that I had taught you. Does the entire paragraph play as a set of pillars that would give birth to this statement? In other words, can this statement be drawn by merging all these statements together? Yes or no? Yes, absolutely. Thus, the last line is going to be our conclusion and remaining parts are going to be our premise. Now, let's understand something else before I proceed with the next question. One thing, did you hit the like button yet? If you haven't done that, please do. If you haven't shared the session yet, please do that too. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't done that yet. Okay? And comment under my video if you're watching the video recorded later on. All right, so let's go on. Okay. Can I, in short, say a conclusion is equal to my main argument? Can I draw this out of the theory that we've learned? Can I draw this conclusion? That a conclusion in such a paragraph, not one line, in such a paragraph is equal to the main argument of the whole paragraph. Yes. So one lesson to learn. You know what? Critical reasoning, reading comprehensions, they're interconnected. If you are confused with identifying the main idea of a passage, use the similar theory, the similar one. And if you are struggling with critical reasoning questions, make sure, okay, somebody didn't get what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, if I draw a major conclusion towards the end or the beginning of a passage, can I say, this is exactly why the whole passage was written? Can I say this is the main idea of the whole passage? Yes, that's the main argument the author is trying to make through the whole passage. So if you are struggling with getting critical reasoning questions correct, make sure every single time you know what the argument is. If there is a conclusion that's drawn in a passage written by the author, that by default is going to be your argument. If that's not there, you have to figure out the argument on your own. But if you do not figure out the argument on your own, you are going to be getting your question very likely incorrect. Strengthening, weakening, every such question is dependent on your capability to identify the argument. If you're unable to identify the argument, you are very likely going to get the question incorrect. So make sure you work on the theory. Also, before I show you the next question, make sure you save the video, so that every time you struggle with a question, you come back to the video, rewatch it, so that you have more clarity about how to go ahead with it. Let's go with the next set of questions. You have to identify the conclusion here. Ready, everyone? Okay? Okay, here we go. Not this one, this question. What conclusion can be drawn from this paragraph? Send me your answers in the chat box. I'll wait for you. C, A. All right. A is a conclusion. Okay. B, Harshita. Okay. B, Upasna. Let's understand the question. So, this line, of course, is a premise. That means if you go for spotting a tiger into a national park or anywhere else, you can spot some between December to February. Some say that's the best time. Premise. This also says that in some other centuries, they show up in the north side of the park instead of the south or any other side. That means sighting here is dependent on another factor, climate. Sighting here is dependent on another factor. That automatically means we can conclude A, right? Seasonal variations in temperature impact tiger sighting. Correct? A should be the correct answer. Yes, but A is wrong. A is not my answer. Why? You can spot them between December to February. That of course should mean A. A is not my answer. Why? No, A is absolutely wrong, Iram. You have to think and tell me why is A wrong. Anyone? Why is A wrong? Why can A not be concluded from the paragraph? Think. When we learn conclusion, December to February? No, summer is Upasna. Summer is a season, my child. When we draw a conclusion, learn to draw a conclusion from the whole paragraph. If I have to draw assumption, I might have assumption from one line, I might have an assumption from the whole paragraph. Which one would you choose? It's too broad. Exactly. You would always choose the one that's drawn from the whole thing. Now what should your answer be? What is the main argument in the paragraph and what can you draw out of the whole paragraph? What is it? The correct answer is going to be a B here. Very few of you got that correct. And yeah, exactly. So B is going to be our correct answer. It's not dependent only on temperatures. It's basically how frequently you see a tiger or how frequently you don't. All is something that makes it wrong. Diya, C is wrong because all makes it wrong. All is too extreme an option. We don't know about all. We know about most maybe, but we don't know about all. Tigers usually venture out in summer. How do you know that? Maybe. How do you know about caves? We don't know it. And if it was true, this statement would not have been true. It's a far-fetched one. The correct answer is B. Okay? Yes, Upasna, I saw that. Aditi, absolutely correct. The correct answer is a B. So, this, I had brought some previous year questions, but that you can easily access. So, I want you to do some homework here before I see you in the next class. Please understand the basic concepts of critical reasoning, okay? And understand how an argument is identified. Solve some previous year questions. Revisit the video if you're confused again with the theory. And that's what I want you to do. All right. And please don't leave the class without liking the class, sharing the video with your friends, commenting under my video, and subscribe to the channel. That is all for today. I shall see you again very, very soon. Have a very good day, everyone. God bless you.